Hey there. Before we begin, let's get you comfortable, really comfortable. Adjust those pillows behind your head. Maybe one more under your neck. Pull that blanket up a little higher. If you've got a fan running or some white noise in the background, perfect. We're going to spend the next hour or so together, and I want you settled in like you're tucked into the warmest corner of a medieval cottage on the coldest night of winter. I always love knowing where you all are in the world. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is there right now. It's amazing to think of us all gathered here, across continents and time zones, like villagers gathering around the same fire. And if these stories help you sleep, a quick like or subscribe really does help. It keeps the hearth burning, so to speak. Now, let me ask you something. When was the last time you spent an entire evening doing essentially nothing? Not scrolling, not watching shows, not checking messages or emails or news feeds. Just sitting, being present, letting time pass slowly, naturally, without hurrying it along or filling it with distraction. For most of us, the answer is probably never, or at least not since childhood. But for medieval people, that was most evenings, especially in winter, especially on the long nights between sunset and sleep, when darkness came early, and there was nothing to do but gather by the fire and wait for bedtime. Tonight we're going to experience one of those evenings. Not rush through it, not summarize it, actually live it, hour by hour, as a family would have in a small English village in the year 1350. We're going to feel time the way they felt it, slow, present, measured by the crackling of wood and the rhythm of simple tasks. So close your eyes if you'd like, or just let them rest softly. Take a deep breath, let it out slowly, and step with me into the gathering darkness of a January evening. 675 years ago, it's the 15th of January, 1350. The sun set nearly an hour ago, around 4:30 in the afternoon, and the world outside has gone dark. Not the sodium orange darkness of modern nights, broken by streetlights and house lights and the glow of distant cities. This is true darkness, the kind of darkness that presses against windows and doors like something physical, the kind that makes the small circle of firelight feel like the only safe place in the world. You're in a cottage, in a village called Wellow, in the county of Somerset, southwestern England. The village is small, maybe 30 households, perhaps 150 people total, clustered around a Norman stone church and a manor house where the local lord lives. Beyond the village, fields, now frozen and snow-covered, woods, bare-branched and silent, hills rolling away into darkness. This particular cottage belongs to a family named Thatcher. Appropriate, since the father, William, does indeed work as a thatcher, repairing and maintaining the straw roofs that shelter the village. His wife is Agnes. They have 4 children: Edmund, age 14, Marjorie, age 11, Alice, age 7, and baby John, not quite 2 years old. Agnes's mother, who everyone calls Old Meg, lives with them too. She's perhaps 60 years old, which makes her genuinely ancient by medieval standards. The cottage is a single room, about 16 feet by 20 feet. Timber frame, wattle and daub walls, thatched roof, packed earth floor covered in rushes and straw that rustle when anyone walks. One small window with a wooden shutter, currently latched tight against the cold. A heavy oak door also closed, with a wool curtain hanging behind it, and in the center of the far wall, the hearth, the heart of everything. Let's go inside. The door opens. You have to duck your head slightly, and the difference between outside and inside hits you immediately. Not warmth exactly. The cottage is cold by modern standards, but it's warmer than outside, maybe 45 degrees Fahrenheit inside, compared to 25 outside. That 20-degree difference feels significant when your face has been stinging from wind. Your eyes take a moment to adjust. The light inside is dim, amber, flickering. It comes from 3 sources: the hearth fire, which is burning steadily with 2 oak logs and a bed of orange coals underneath. A single rushlight in a metal holder near the fire, its small flame wavering, and the faint, fading light from the window. The shutter is open just a crack, letting in the last pale remnants of daylight, though that's fading fast. The light from the window is almost gone now. Just a faint, grey-blue glow, like the world outside is slowly dissolving into nothing. Marjorie stands, walks to the window, peers through the crack in the shutter. "Can't see anything," she reports. "It's full dark now." "Close it, then," William says. "No sense letting cold in for nothing." Marjorie pushes the shutter fully closed and secures the latch, a simple wooden peg that drops into a slot. The room immediately feels smaller, more enclosed. The firelight seems brighter now that there's no competing daylight. The walls glow faintly amber. The faces of the family are painted in warm, shifting light and deep shadows. This is it now. This is their world until morning. This room, this fire, these people. The darkness outside might as well be infinite. The room smells of wood smoke, wool, cooking food, and human bodies. Not unpleasant, or at least not unpleasant to them. This is what inside smells like. This is home. The fire crackles softly. A log shifts, settling deeper into the coals. Sparks drift upward, winking out in the smoke haze that hovers near the ceiling. Outside, you can hear the wind. It's not howling. Tonight isn't stormy. But it's steady. A constant low whisper against the thatch. Occasionally, a stronger gust makes the door curtain move slightly, and everyone glances at it instinctively, making sure the cold isn't finding a way in. The hearth wasn't just where you cooked your food. It wasn't just a source of heat. It was the single most important feature of your home. If you had a good hearth, well tended and properly supplied with fuel, you could survive winter. If your hearth went out, if you let the fire die and couldn't restart it, you were in genuine danger. The fire itself sat on a base of stone or packed earth, sometimes contained within a low stone curb to prevent coals from rolling out onto the floor. There was no grate elevating the wood, no andirons. Those were luxuries of later periods or wealthier homes. You built your fire directly on the hearthstone, arranging logs carefully to allow airflow underneath and between them. And above the fire, suspended from an iron chain or rod, anchored in the wall or a beam, hung the cooking pot. The hearth had no chimney in most peasant homes, at least not in the way we think of them. Instead, smoke rose from the fire and drifted up toward the roof, where it would eventually find its way out through gaps in the thatch, or through a small opening near the peak, called a smoke hole. This meant the upper part of the room was always hazy with smoke. You learned to live with it. Your eyes adjusted, your lungs adjusted to some degree. The smoke actually served a useful purpose. It rose into the thatch and helped preserve it by killing insects and preventing rot. But the smoke was also why medieval homes felt dark and close, even during the day. The haze filtered the light coming through windows. Everything had a slightly amber cast, like an old photograph. And everything, walls, beams, clothing, hair, skin, absorbed the smell of wood smoke. That smell became so much a part of daily life that medieval people probably didn't notice it anymore. It was just the smell of being indoors. The family is already here, settled into their evening positions. This is clearly routine. Everyone knows where they belong. William sits on a low stool near the fire, closest to the hearth, the position of honor. He's working on something with his hands. Looking closer, you see, he's making rope. There's a bundle of dried hemp fibers beside him, and he's twisting them together, 3 strands at a time, the motion practiced and rhythmic. Twist, twist, twist. His hands are large, rough, scarred from years of working with thatch and rope and sharp tools. Agnes is on a bench against the wall, nursing baby John. She's mostly concealed under a wool shawl. Medieval modesty about nursing was real, but you can see the baby's small head, hear his contented suckling sounds. In her free hand, Agnes holds a drop spindle, and even while nursing, she's spinning wool. The spindle rotates slowly as she draws out fiber from a bundle of carded wool tucked under one arm. Drop, spin, twist, wind. Drop, spin, twist, wind. Her hands know the movement so well, she doesn't need to watch what she's doing. Old Meg sits in a chair, an actual wooden chair with arms and a back, which marks it as the household's most valuable piece of furniture. She's closest to the fire. After William, wrapped in multiple layers of wool, her hands stretched toward the flames. She's not working. At 60, in constant pain from arthritis, she's earned the right to just rest. Her eyes are half closed, her breathing slow. She might be dozing. She might just be comfortable for the first time all day. The children are arrayed on the floor near the fire. Edmund, the oldest, is whittling something. A spoon, maybe, or a simple toy. He has a piece of ash wood and a small knife, and he's working carefully, shaving off thin curls of pale wood that fall onto the rushes around him. Marjorie and Alice are playing a quiet game with pebbles, some kind of counting game, occasionally giggling when one of them wins a round. The fire crackles softly. A log shifts, settling deeper into the coals. Sparks drift upward, winking out in the smoke haze that hovers near the ceiling. The fire also provided light, especially in the evening. Rushlights and candles helped, but they were dim and precious. The fire was brighter, more reliable. Families would gather close to it as darkness fell, pulling benches or stools near the hearth, claiming the warmest spots, and people would just sit there for hours, not doing nothing. Hands were always busy. Women spun wool, carded flax, mended clothes, made candles from saved fat. Men carved wooden implements, repaired tools, made rope, wove baskets. Children learn these tasks by watching and helping, their small hands contributing to the household work. But the pace was slow, meditative almost. The fire provided a kind of hypnotic focus. You'd watch the flames dance, the way they'd leap and settle, the way embers would glow and fade. The sound was soothing, crackling, popping, the occasional hiss when a pocket of moisture in the wood turned to steam. No one was checking their phone. No one was watching TV. There was just a fire, the work in your hands, the presence of your family nearby, the wind outside, and the knowledge that you were warm, you were safe, you were surviving another winter night. While William tends the animals, Agnes begins her own evening task, mending. She goes to a wooden chest in the corner, one of the few pieces of furniture besides the bed frame and Meg's chair, and pulls out a basket containing clothing that needs repair. There's always something that needs mending, a torn seam, a hole worn through from use, a hem that's coming loose. Medieval clothing was too valuable, too labor-intensive to make, to simply discard when damaged. Everything was repaired, patched, repaired again, patched again, until literally nothing remained that could be salvaged. Agnes spreads out the items near the fire where the light is best. There's Edmund's tunic, a tear in the sleeve from catching it on a fence. Marjorie's hose, a hole in the knee. One of William's shirts, missing a tie at the neck. Her own apron, frayed edges that need hemming. She selects Edmund's tunic first and examines the tear by firelight. It's clean-edged, which is good. Easy to sew. She reaches into her sewing basket, a smaller basket kept inside the larger one, and pulls out a needle. This needle is made of bone, hand-carved, with an eye carefully drilled through one end. Metal needles exist, but are expensive. Bone works fine if you're patient. Thread is another matter. Agnes has some linen thread, spun fine and saved specifically for sewing. She threads the needle, ties a knot at the end, and begins to stitch the tear closed. Her stitches are small even, practiced. She doesn't need to think about the motion. Her hands know what to do. Marjorie watches her mother work for a moment, then asks, "Can I help?" Agnes considers. Marjorie is 11, old enough to be learning these skills properly. "Fetch that apron," she says. "The one with the frayed hem. I'll show you how to do a proper rolled hem." Marjorie retrieves the apron and settles next to her mother. Agnes finishes the tunic repair, knots the thread, bites it off close to the fabric. Then she turns her attention to teaching. "See here," she says, holding the apron edge to the firelight. "The hem has come loose. We could just fold it once and stitch, but it would be thick and clumsy. Better to do a rolled hem, like this." She demonstrates, rolling the edge of the fabric tightly between her fingers, creating a thin tube of cloth. Then she stitches through it, the needle piercing the roll, catching just enough fabric to hold without creating lumps. "You try," Agnes says, handing the apron and needle to Marjorie. Marjorie takes them carefully. Her first attempt at rolling the hem is clumsy, too thick, uneven, but Agnes doesn't criticize. She just guides, showing Marjorie with her own fingers how tight to roll, how to hold the fabric steady. Like this. See? Roll it with your thumb, hold it with your finger, then stitch. Marjorie tries again, better this time. The stitch is a bit large, a bit crooked, but it's functional. She continues slowly, carefully, her tongue poking out slightly, in concentration. Agnes nods approval and picks up the next item, William's shirt. Missing necktie. She'll need to make a new one from scrap linen, cut a strip, hem it, and sew it onto the neckline. She begins cutting the strip, measuring it against the shirt, making sure it's long enough to tie properly. Meanwhile, Edmund has returned to his whittling, and Alice has curled up near old Meg's chair, leaning against it, playing with a small cloth doll, just a shaped piece of fabric. stuffed with wool scraps, with features stitched on in dark thread. She's making the doll dance in the firelight, creating shadows on the wall, telling herself a quiet story. Agnes shifts the baby to her other side, adjusting her shawl. "Edmund," she says quietly, "check the pot." Edmund sets down his whittling, stands, and moves to the hearth. Hanging over the fire from an iron chain is a large pot, black from years of use. Inside, tonight's supper. Edmund picks up a wooden spoon from the hearthstone, stirs the contents, leans forward to smell. "Nearly ready," he says. "Give it another quarter hour," Agnes replies. "Let the barley soften more." Edmund nods, replaces the spoon, returns to his spot. He doesn't check a clock. There is no clock. Agnes just knows, from experience, from the feel of time passing, approximately when the food will be ready. You learn that when you cook the same meal 1,000 times over an open fire. Agnes finally sets down her spindle and stands, carefully, so as not to wake the baby, who's now fully asleep on her shoulder. She carries him to the far corner of the room, where a wooden cradle sits, padded with wool. She lays him down gently, covers him with a small blanket, rocks the cradle once, twice, until she's sure he's settled. Then she goes to the hearth and picks up the wooden spoon Edmund used earlier. She stirs the pot, tastes, considers. "Edmund, fetch bowls," she says. "Time to eat." Edmund goes to a shelf against the wall, rough planks supported by wooden pegs, and takes down 4 wooden bowls. They're simple, hand-carved, darkened with use and age. He wipes each one with a rag, removing any dust, and brings them to the hearth. Agnes is ladling out the pottage. It's thick tonight, more stew than soup. Barley and split peas form the base, swollen from hours of cooking. There are chunks of turnip, some onion, a few pieces of salted pork that have surrendered their flavor and fat to the broth. The smell is hearty, savory, touched with wood smoke from the fire. She fills the first bowl, the fullest portion, and hands it to William. He's the head of household. He works the hardest. Physically, he gets the most food. This isn't unfair. This is survival. He needs the calories. Second bowl to old Meg, a smaller portion, but with more of the meat pieces. She needs food she can chew easily, and she's honored for her age. Third and fourth bowls for Edmund and Marjorie, equal portions. Alice gets a smaller bowl. She's only 7. She doesn't eat as much, and Agnes serves herself last, taking what remains, which is still adequate. She made sure there was enough. There always is, if you plan carefully. They don't have a table. Tables are for wealthier homes. Instead, people eat where they sit. William stays on his stool. Edmund and the girls settle on the floor near the fire. Old Meg remains in her chair, the bowl balanced on her lap. Agnes sits on the bench, her bowl beside her. No one has a fork. Forks don't exist in English peasant households in 1350. They have spoons, wooden spoons, carved from sycamore or ash. And they have bread, though tonight's bread is 2 days old, hard enough that you need to soften it in the pottage before eating. William breaks off a piece of bread, dips it in his pottage, and eats. The others follow his lead. For several minutes, there's just the sound of eating. Spoons scraping bowls, quiet chewing, the occasional slurp, the fire crackling steadily. The resulting pottage was rarely exciting by modern standards. It was brown or greyish brown, thick and lumpy, smelling of grain and onions and smoke. But it was hot. It was filling. It would warm you from the inside, settling in your stomach like a coal, radiating heat through your cold core. And it cooked all day. That was key. The pot sat over the fire from morning until evening, maintained at a gentle simmer. This slow cooking extracted every bit of nutrition and flavor from the ingredients. It also meant the house smelled constantly of food, which was its own comfort. That savory, homey smell said, "We have food, we will eat, we will survive another day." Your clothes got wet, from snow, from rain, from the steam of cooking, from your own sweat, and wet wool, while still insulating, is heavy, uncomfortable, and takes forever to dry if you just leave it in a pile. So every evening, part of the household routine was arranging wet or damp clothing near the hearth to dry overnight. Cloaks would be draped over benches or hung from pegs driven into the wall. Hose and stockings would be stretched out on the floor near, but not too near, the fire. Shoes would be unlaced and opened up, positioned where they'd get warmth without getting hot enough to crack the leather. The room would gradually fill with the smell of drying wool, that distinctive wet sheep smell, mixed with wood smoke and whatever was cooking. It wasn't unpleasant, really. It was the smell of taking care of things, of preparing for another cold day, of surviving. Clothes were also repaired constantly. Wool wore out. Seams split. Hems frayed. Winter evenings were often spent with needle and thread, patching holes, reinforcing weak spots, letting out seams to accommodate growing children, or adding extra fabric where wear was worst. Nothing was thrown away if it could possibly be salvaged. A tunic might be patched so extensively that very little of the original fabric remained visible, and it was still worn. When clothing became too worn to repair, it wasn't discarded. It was repurposed. Torn tunics became rags for cleaning. Wool scraps became stuffing for shoes or pillows. Even the smallest pieces might be saved for future patches. Fabric was expensive. Waste was unthinkable. And when you finally went to bed, wrapped in your linen underclothes, perhaps with a wool cap on your head, you'd pull the blankets up. Wool, probably coarse and heavy, maybe layered with linen sheets if your family could afford them, and you'd tuck yourself in as tightly as possible. The blankets weren't just lying loose over you. You'd tuck the edges under the mattress, under your body, creating a kind of cocoon. You were trying to trap your body heat in a small pocket of air, minimizing the volume of cold air that needed warming. Your breath would fog in front of your face, but under the blankets, pressed against whoever you were sharing the bed with, because people absolutely shared beds for warmth, you'd gradually create a little envelope of warmth. Bed sharing was standard. Children slept together, often 3 or 4 to a bed. Married couples shared beds. Even unrelated travelers at inns would share beds. You'd pay for a space in a bed, not a private bed of your own. This wasn't just about saving space. It was about survival. Body heat was precious, and sharing it was practical. In the coldest parts of winter, in the coldest parts of Europe, people took additional measures. Heated stones wrapped in cloth, placed at the foot of the bed. Small clay or metal containers filled with hot coals, bed warmers, passed between the sheets before you got in. These were risky, hot enough to burn if you touched them directly, and the coals needed careful handling to avoid fire. But on a night when the temperature inside your cottage dropped below freezing, they were worth it. Some households hung curtains around their beds, heavy wool or linen curtains, suspended from the ceiling on a simple frame, creating a small room within the room. These bed curtains served multiple purposes: privacy, in a home where everyone lived in essentially one shared space; protection from drafts, and most importantly, they trapped heat. The space inside the curtains would warm from your body heat much faster than the open room, and stay warmer through the night. The bedstones are ready, glowing faintly red in the coals. Agnes uses 2 sticks like tongs to fish them out one at a time, quickly wrapping each in several layers of old rag. Even through the wrapping, the heat is intense. These stones will stay warm for hours, radiating heat into the bed. She carries them carefully to the sleeping platform and tucks them under the blankets, one near where her feet will be, one near William's side, one in the middle where the children will sleep. The stones will warm the bedding before they climb in and continue providing heat through the coldest part of the night. "Bed," William says simply. He moves toward the sleeping platform, guided by memory and the faint fire glow. Agnes follows. Edmund and Marjorie follow her. The sleeping arrangement is practical and based on warmth. Old Meg and baby John are at the back, against the wall, where they're most protected from drafts. Alice is next to Meg. Then comes Agnes. Then the baby in his cradle, positioned at the edge of the platform within easy reach. William sleeps on the outside edge, the position closest to any threat from the door, the position a man takes to protect his family. And Edmund and Marjorie curl up at the foot end, sharing a blanket. Everyone sleeps in their underclothes. Outer tunics and gowns have been hung on pegs. Cloaks are draped over the bed for additional covering. Shoes are lined up nearby, within reach, but not so close they'll be kicked over in the night. William settles onto the platform with a grunt. The rope webbing creaks under his weight. The straw mattress rustles. He pulls the blankets up, heavy wool, layered thick, and tucks them around himself. Agnes climbs in beside him. She checks on baby John one more time, still sleeping peacefully, then arranges herself for sleep. The heated stone near her feet is gloriously warm. She tucks her cold toes near it, careful not to touch it directly through the rag wrapping, and sighs with contentment. Edmund and Marjorie claim their spots. They're used to sharing space, to sleeping close. They arrange themselves efficiently. Edmund on his side, Marjorie curled against his back for warmth, the blanket pulled over both of them. The bed is crowded. 6 people on a platform, maybe 6 feet by 8 feet. But that crowding is warmth, body heat shared. No one sleeps cold when sleeping pressed against family. For a few minutes, there's settling, small adjustments, someone's elbow in someone's ribs. A murmured, "Move over," the creak of rope webbing, the rustle of straw, the whisper of wool blankets being arranged and rearranged, then gradually, stillness. You'd lie there in the darkness, cocooned in layers of fabric, listening to the sounds of the house settling. The wind outside, constant and cold. The creak of timber beams contracting in the cold. The breathing of whoever shared your bed. Maybe the soft shuffle of someone getting up to check the fire, or the quiet cry of a baby being nursed, and you'd be warm, not summer warm, not modern heating warm, but warm enough, protected enough, safe enough to sleep. The evening has reached that particular quality of deepness where time seems to slow even further. The work has gentled. Hands are still busy, but movements have become more relaxed, less purposeful. People are winding down, whether they consciously realize it or not, preparing mentally and physically for sleep. The fire has burned down to mostly coals now, glowing red and orange, with just a few small flames dancing over the remaining wood. The light in the room has dimmed significantly. Shadows have grown deeper. The far corners of the cottage have disappeared into darkness. The rushlight has burned down to almost nothing, just a tiny nub of flame guttering. William pinches it out between his thumb and forefinger. The gesture so quick he doesn't even wince. The room plunges into near total darkness, lit only by the faint red glow from the banked fire. Your eyes need a moment to adjust. Gradually, shapes emerge. The bed platform. The huddled forms of Meg and Alice, already lying there. The walls, barely visible. The window shutter, solid black, against slightly less black walls. At night, lighting was minimal. Rushlights, the pithy interior of rush plants, dried and dipped in fat, could provide a small flame. They'd be held in a simple metal clip, angled so the burning end was elevated. One rushlight might burn for 15 or 20 minutes, giving off light roughly equivalent to a single candle. You'd go through several in an evening. Candles were better, brighter, longer lasting, but expensive. Tallow candles made from rendered animal fat were within reach of some households. Beeswax candles were for the wealthy. Most peasants used rushlights or simply relied on firelight. This meant evenings were dark, genuinely dark, in a way modern people never experience unless there's a power outage. You could see the fire clearly, and the few feet around it, but the corners of the room faded into shadow. The edges of vision were always dark, and in that darkness, in that small smoke-touched space, families lived. They adapted their routines to the light available, doing close work during the day, saving fire-adjacent tasks for evening. They learned to navigate their homes in the dark, knowing where the table was, where the bed frame stood, where the storage chest sat. The room is dark, truly dark. The faint glow from the banked fire barely reaches the sleeping platform. You can't see faces. You can barely see shapes, just darkness, and the sound of breathing in 6 people breathing, some slow and deep, already asleep or close to it, some lighter, faster, still settling into sleep. Baby John's breath is barely audible, tiny and quick. Old Meg's is raspy, catching occasionally in her throat but steady. The family in Wellow sleeps peacefully in their crowded bed. The fire breathes softly beneath its ash blanket. The snow falls gently outside, muffling the world in white silence. And in the morning, someone will wake first, maybe the same person who banked the fire, and they'll rise in the cold darkness, shivering, and they'd go to the hearth, and they'd scrape away the ash, and they'd blow gently on the coals, and they'd add kindling, and the fire would wake up, and the cycle would begin again. The morning fire waking was its own ritual. The first person up, often the mother or the oldest daughter, would approach the hearth, kneel on the cold stone, and carefully scrape away the ash. If you'd done it right, there would be embers underneath, still orange, still alive. You'd blow on them gently, add a handful of dry kindling, and coax the flames back to life. The sound of that first crackling wood was the sound of the household waking up. That was the rhythm of winter survival. Fire and food and sleep, repeated day after day, night after night, until finally, after weeks, after months, the days would begin to lengthen, the sun would climb higher in the sky, the frozen ground would soften, and spring would return. The family in that cottage will wake in the morning to cold and more work and the endless cycle of survival. But they've had this night, these hours, this warmth, this togetherness, and tomorrow night, if they're fortunate, they'll have it again, and the night after that, and the night after that. Small victories, small comforts, small moments of peace in a hard world. Outside, the snow continues to fall. The wind has died completely. Just the snow, silent and soft, covering everything. The cottage, the village, the fields, the woods, all of it disappearing under white. The snow outside is falling steadier now. You can hear it, a soft whisper hiss against the thatch. The wind has died almost completely. Just the snow falling straight down in the still air, accumulating. By morning, there will be several inches. The world will be transformed, softened, muffled. Outside, you can hear it starting, the soft whisper of snow beginning to fall. Just a gentle sound, barely audible, but distinct if you listen for it. The wind has dropped slightly. The air has that particular muffled quality that comes with snowfall. "There's your snow, Meg," William says. "Your knee was right." "Always is," Meg says smugly. Marjorie sets aside the carding paddles and goes to the window. She opens the shutter just a crack and peers out into the darkness. Snowflakes are visible in the faint light that escapes from the cottage, white specks swirling in the blackness. "It's coming down good," she reports. "Close the shutter," William says. "No sense letting cold in to watch snow fall." Marjorie obeys, latching it shut again. But there's a small thrill in the observation. Snow means the world will be white tomorrow. Means no work in the fields. Not that there's much field work in January anyway. But snow makes it impossible. Means staying close to home, staying by the fire. Means the cold will be worse, but also means the particular beauty of winter landscape that even medieval people, despite their hardship, could appreciate. But inside, the fire keeps burning. The light remains constant. The warmth, such as it is, holds. This room is its own small world, separate from the weather, separate from the darkness, separate from everything except itself. Inside, warmth. Not much warmth, but enough. The banked fire still radiates faint heat. The stones, in the bed, give off their stored warmth. 6 human bodies generate heat. The wool blankets trap it. The thatch overhead insulates. The small room holds it all close. The cottage is silent now, except for breathing and the occasional creak of timber settling in the cold. The fire glows beneath its ash blanket, a secret warmth, a banked promise of morning light. Outside, the world sleeps under snow. Inside, the family sleeps under wool, and both are surviving, hour by hour, night by night, until spring returns and the cycle begins again. But enough. Somehow, always enough. So here we are, at the end of our evening by the medieval hearth. We've spent these hours together, you and I, experiencing time the way medieval people experienced it, slowly, fully, without distraction or interruption. Just the steady progression from sunset to sleep, marked by simple tasks and quiet conversation, and the hypnotic comfort of firelight. There was no plot tonight, no drama, no conflict, Just life. Ordinary, medieval life, unfolding in its patient rhythm. Supper prepared and eaten, mending done, tools repaired, stories told, prayers said, fire tended, bed warmed, sleep embraced. This was every winter evening for millions of people across centuries. Not all evenings, certainly. Sometimes there were celebrations, sometimes emergencies, sometimes variations in the routine. But most evenings looked essentially like this: hours by the hearth, family together, darkness, outside, warmth, however modest, inside. What strikes me, having walked through this evening with you, is how present they were, how fully they inhabited each moment, because they had no choice. There was nowhere else for their attention to go. No screens, no distant voices, no information from far away demanding response. Just the fire, the work in their hands, the people beside them, and the long, patient unfolding of the evening hours. We've lost that, mostly. We've traded it for convenience, for entertainment, for connection across distances. Maybe that's worth it. Maybe not. But we've definitely lost the ability to sit for hours doing essentially nothing without feeling anxious or bored or like we're wasting time. Medieval people knew that time wasn't wasted if you were warm, fed, safe, and together. That was the entire goal. Everything else, the work, the preparation, the careful management of resources, existed to make those evening hours possible, to create space where you could rest without fear, where you could lower your guard for a few hours, where you could simply be. And in being, simply being, there was peace. Right now, in your own bed, in your own time, you're experiencing a descendant of that medieval evening. You're winding down. You're letting go of the day. You're preparing for sleep. Your room is warmer than theirs ever was. Your bed is softer. Your blankets are lighter and warmer. You're safer, more comfortable, more secure than they could have imagined possible. But the basic need is the same. The need for rest, for warmth, for a safe space to let consciousness fade into sleep, for darkness to hold you gently through the night. So let it. Let your breathing slow. Let your muscles relax. Let the day, whatever it held, settle behind you like snow, settling on old footprints, covering them, making them smooth and white and peaceful. You're warm. You're safe. You're exactly where you need to be. The medieval hearth still glows faintly in the darkness, though you can't see it from here. The family still breathes in their sleep. The snow still falls, and you can rest now. You've earned it. You've made it through another day, just like they did, just like humans have done for countless generations. Tomorrow will come, it always does, but tonight belongs to rest. Sleep well. The fire glows on. Good night.